Hi everybody, thanks very much for the attendance today. Welcome to Tony. I see Gary's here. Stephen, hi Stephen. Kerry, Charles Cotton, welcome on the webinar. There is some more people that we're waiting to come on, and I'll give them another minute or so. Zach, good to see you here. Okay, 30 seconds to go, give or take. It's fascinating, by the way, that people have the curiosity to give up their daily activities to attend this webinar, and I hope that they can oblige back by giving you value. Well, anyway, I think we'll start with this, and if anybody comes and joins us later, then they're more than welcome to listen to and participate as best as they can. So, what is the purpose of this webinar? Most of the people that are attending today are people that have seen the iIntro presentation in the past, or they've had some sort of interaction with me. But for whatever reason, they decided not to take action. Typically, this was because of priorities at the time, and possibly related to cash as well. So let's hope that by the end of the webinar you will have overwhelming desire to take action, number one, and number two is we'll give you more than adequate financial reason for you to actually take the action. Just to recap, and please forgive me if for the most recent attendees, the most recent people that have spoken with me, they might have seen some of this stuff or part of it in some way, shape or form. But essentially there are three reasons we believe that people need to take action. Number one, we know that the industry is changing, and the new outlook for the industry, in my opinion, is looking as less and less business will be given to recruiters and more will go in-house, or the clients will find alternative ways to engage with candidates by actually working on the same database that we all now work from, and that's basically LinkedIn. There is also automation that's coming into recruitment, and more of this automation, even though simple companies such as the traditional companies such as Indeed are currently offering alternatives, very clever algorithms to find people and match them against potential opportunities. So the general tendency in the market is less work goes to recruiter, more work stays in-house, and less fees are payable, or level of the fees actually starting to reduce, which we've got evidence of as well. So I want you to think of it for a moment. What will happen to your business if you continue to offer the same conventional and service that you currently offer and have been offering for quite some time, and the market gets affected by Brexit? That will have certainly an impact on you. Another thing is that already clients have clearly demonstrated by their actions that they're not happy with transactional recruitment. So more and more there is a demand for value-add services, and typically clients revolve around time, people and money. So everything in recruitment, though within reason everything in recruitment revolves around these three things. So in order for us to be able to tackle these requirements, the ever increasing demand from clients for addressing these three issues, ultimately we need to look at the total picture, the bigger picture. So in the past we've offered the solution as a software. We were enthusiastic about it because it did absolute amazing things for us, and when we sold it to other recruiters, some of the recruiters took the initiative in exactly the same way, with a little bit of our help, and processed this one further. but some of the recruiters didn't quite get the same exciting return on investment. And the main reason for that is that we did not support them well enough. And that's a fact. We acknowledge the fact that these days it's not enough just to offer someone a single solution. You need to have all the elements around that. So as part of this rethink process, we've identified that there are 7 challenges that exist in recruitment, which, unless you address all together, ultimately you will always have something that suffers in your overall delivery. So here they are. How do we recruit people for our own businesses? Now, if you're thinking of growing and building a business, ultimately choosing the right people that are culturally aligned with yourself and your objectives, and work alongside with you to support the overall business proposition is absolute key. And we know the recruitment industry is probably one of the worst culprits with regard to retention. So that's a number 1 issue which we believe needs to be addressed fundamentally from the very beginning. The next one is how to identify the best tools and processes that you need in order to operate at the utmost best performance you can deliver for your clients. The one after is knowing how to attract high quality clients, i.e. very specific targeted approach, which is broadly understood as marketing. But knowing how to communicate, you can be the best recruiters in the market, you can have the best operating system, but if you do not communicate with your clients on a regular and structured basis with value-add communication that's appreciated by your clients, you will remain the best kept secret. The one after, and possibly the one after that, this is basically association to sales. Sales need to be a process which we all enjoy, and unfortunately in some instances it's very difficult these days to pick up the phone and call people because they don't want to answer the phone anymore. So we need to find a way to interact with these clients with business development tools that create what they call a stress-free sales system, so sales processes. Mastering your trade in selling or whatever it is that you do is extremely important, and it basically requires a constant evolution and further development. The one after is my favorite, as a matter of fact, and this is how to convert your clients into what I'd call an advocate. And building an advocacy 100, or even less than that, advocacy 50, depending on the size of your business, is an absolute key. And if you just give you an analogy, most recruiters pride themselves that they've got a wide range of database of prospective clients, and these are prospects. The world is of prospects available. The world is full of prospects available for you. But if you take a client through the process to an advocate, ultimately you need to take them from a prospect to a customer when they buy one thing from you. When they buy more than one service from you, then ultimately they become clients. But advocates are the people that will never go anywhere else, or if they do, they'll come and ask you first. So building these days a liquid cement relationship with your client is absolutely key. And you don't need that many to be very successful in recruitment if you've got all advocates instead of just prospects, customers or clients. The one after is probably another very important one, and something that we use as the cornerstone of everything that we do. And in business we need to make profit. So everything that we do, we need to take into account the fact that it needs to be contributing to bottom line. So every action needs to have a bottom line effect. And as part of these challenges, and I hope that you can relate to some, if not all of these, but essentially we believe that these are the main reasons why some recruiters are not as successful as some others. So as part of our process, we've created something called a roadmap, which, as you can see in a moment, is the acronym for the challenge that we've set, and that is basically the new solution, Retain Recruiter Roadmap. A start to finish, an A to Z, a 100% total solution that covers every single element of that. And if you recall, iIntro was what we originally showed people, which is right here. It only represents 1/7. The technology only represents 1/7 of the total solution. And I hope you'll agree with me that everything that you see here is relevant to your business to a certain extent. So we've created the ideal recruiter recipe, the iIntro platform, which is part of what you've seen in the past, the perfect promotion practice, which is our marketing machine behind the whole lot, the stress-free sales system supported by the Jedi expansion scheme, the advocacy is my favorite, I keep repeating this, is dynamic relationships generator. And last but not least, the ROI report. Now, I won't be able to share with you every single element of this one, but I just want to recap once again what iIntro is all about and why is it so successful or different. So, if I could just take you through this part here. What you see here is the next generation hiring methodology. And this is above and beyond what typically recruiters do. But just to recap, this is what recruiters do. Now, if you think of it, a recruiter will go to a client and take an assignment. This assignment might be passed on to other recruitment firms. And typically, because of the fact that they're under pressure, working on contingency, they will go out there and try and very quickly identify a number of candidates that, according to them, fit the client's requirements. They'll check their credentials, their employment history, and they'll carry out an interview. Once they've done that, and they feel that the candidates are sort of fairly well positioned for this role, in their opinion, they'll send these to the client. The client will get a bunch of CVs, between 3 and 10, depending on the seniority of the role, from all these multi-agencies that have been instructed to this role on a contingency basis. And then the client will have to take over the whole lot and start doing their own evaluation based on their own either very sophisticated approach or limited capabilities, depending on the firm that is, or the employer. So bottom line is that we believe that's no longer enough for a number of reasons. Firstly, there is more to do that helps clients recruit better. And the first, we've added 3 additional dimensions of assessment. The first one that we've got here is number 2, showing behavioral profiling. So identifying the cultural and corporate requirements for the company and fitting these, or identifying what they are, is a number 1 priority here. It starts from the client. So we'll help clients identify what are the typical attitudes and beliefs. Excuse me, I'm just going to grab a glass of water. Sorry, I'm not very well. Behavioral profile will help identify the attitude, belief, the temperament and judgment and aptitude and behavioral capabilities as some of the assessments that will help the client know what good looks like from a behavioral point of view, from a cultural point of view. The next one after that is what we call key competency assessments. This is basically skills, knowledge and application, just to mention a few. It is more than that. But essentially, it's helping the client to identify what are the key competencies, or the 80-20 principle that exists in any business, i.e. identifying the 20% of the key competencies that will determine 80% of the performance is extremely important. So we have this as an additional layer. And as a wrapper that accelerates the whole process and digitizes it is the next gen technology. And what's the next gen technology that supports this process? Is the digitized recruitment process, which is number 1. It's the fact that it's a collaborative recruitment platform where both clients and candidates participate in the process, gives unparalleled level of commitment that ultimately sees itself through when it comes down to appointment. So in other words, you're not going to get people that will probably waste your time. When you're asking them to participate, is something that's part of the recruitment process. And last but not least, this is actually a unique proposition. So all this is the wrapper, as you can see it now, and it represents the next gen methodology. We do not only just candidate background and some interviews, but we actually do a lot more of this stuff on behalf of the client. So what's the technology? By the way, as you probably spotted here, this should be technology. But what we have is a white label solution that's fully branded in your own personal brand collateral. It's cloud-based, so it's secure, easy access. You don't have to have downloads or anything like that. It's available 24/7 on multi-access device. So you can have it on iPad, iPhone, at the airport, at the train station, or at the other part of the world. So that's some examples of front-end customization that we've got for clients. So everybody gets one of these, plus all the brand and marketing collateral that we support our clients with. So that's basically a recap on the system. I won't go into the system demonstration because most of you have actually seen it, but just in case you need a recap and you've got vested interest in finding out more about it, please feel free to drop me an email at the end of this conversation and simply say what you want to say to me. I hope I can be of assistance to you further. What I'd like to do now is to show you a more important part, which is ultimately the business development tool that we put in place that has made a considerable difference in engaging with the clients. And as we said here, under development, we've created a module called the Stress-Free Sales System. So not only is that we teach you or help you, assist you with how to actually position the IM2 service offering, but also how to actually support it with a business development tool. So we've created something that we call the recruitment process audit. Now, the recruitment process audit is something that's born out of our efforts over the years. And we've done this one ourselves, but we've done it with simple pen and paper. So when I go to see a client, the typical discussion that they'll have with the client is, tell me how you do the work, how you currently recruit, and I'll ask the client certain parameters, and then I'll do some calculations. And at the end of these calculations, I'll say to the client is, if you continue to recruit the way you currently recruit, this is the likely impact in terms of cost, direct and indirect. But we've gone one step further. And the recruitment process audit, which I'll share with you in a moment, is a part of an objective study that was instructed by an independent body here in the UK called the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. But before we get to that, what I'd like to say is how I position our current proposition to clients. So after I've established who we are and give the authority of our process and okay, sorry, some technical issue. Okay, I'll just continue with that. What happens is that these things happen in situations like that. So I apologize, please forgive me, I got a little bit distracted. I'm back on. So there are three main objectives when you actually go and see a client. When I actually go and see a client, I'll say to them, I'm no longer just a recruiter. If you actually position yourself as a recruiter looking to actually obtain some of the roles that they currently have, ultimately, you're likely to be perceived by the client as yet another recruiter. And guess what? If you're the best recruiter in the world, but the clients have had poor experiences, they will very likely associate you as them and put you at a disadvantage immediately. So what we've done is we're positioning ourselves now as a management consultancy, and I'll stress this one. When I go to see a client, I don't say, I'm a recruiter trying to work on your vacancies that you've got. I'll be saying to the client, we're a management consultancy that assists employers such as yourself in improving their talent acquisition process. And as part of this, we focus on three main objectives. Number one is a reduction of your commercial downtime, and I'll explain what this means in a moment. Number two is to improve your new employee retention rate. And number three is to help you reduce your overall cost to hire. So bottom line is, as if you remember a moment ago, I said everything revolves around three things in recruitment: time, team, and money. And for that reason, we've actually positioned ourselves under the basis of time, team, and money, but focusing on how we can reduce commercial downtime, how to improve better hiring processes, and how to reduce the overall cost to hire. So, at this moment in time, I will ask the client to describe to me their recruitment process. Very briefly, I'll paraphrase, and I'm sure that you've heard this one before, but typically a client will say, well, we work with 7 recruitment firms that are on our PSL or we know well, etc. These firms, every time when I have an assignment, I'll put it out to a number of these firms, if not all. They'll all go out there on a contingency basis predominantly, and they will try and identify suitable current clients from their database, from their network, from LinkedIn, which we all use now. And once we identify these candidates will be sent to the client. It could be once again between 3 and 10 CVs, depending on the seniority of the role, or in some instances small CVs. But typically a bunch of CVs will go to the client. As soon as the recruiter passes the CVs to the client, they've got very little impact on what happens next. And I hope you've got the same view on that. But essentially, recruiters, after handing over the CVs, are becoming then facilitators. Most of the decisions are taken by the client based on their sophisticated or limited capability to recruit. And I personally believe that recruiters have got better knowledge, or hope they do, than clients in terms of how to recruit, but nonetheless, they don't take any more action further than handing over the CVs. So if you come across a poor recruitment process with a client, you might see a frustration by you when a client chooses someone that's not as good as your best candidate you submitted, and you wouldn't know the reasons why. They'll say they found someone better, but you know that your client candidate is probably the best candidate, but there you go. So you don't have no influence on that. Also, there is no benchmark that suggests what's good and what's bad. So from that point of view, recruiters have very limited input. And guess what happens if the client goes ahead and employs a candidate that is not quite right for that? 3, 6, 9 months later, if they leave, they'll come back and blame you. But nonetheless, they make the choice. So that's the typical process, and this process will filter down people. Clients will do 1, 2, 3 interviews, an hour, 2 hours, depending once again on the seniority. It might involve more than one person, multiple stakeholders, so essentially they'll come to the point of appointing. So when I describe this one to the client, or ask the client to describe something like that, that's what we typically get, don't we? So what happens next is I will then invite the client to do some data input. So, but before I do that, I want to give the credibility of the numbers that I'm about to share with the client through the recruitment process on it. So I'll once again explain that the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, that most of us are familiar with, is a body that provides support and facilitation for recruitment firms in the UK, probably the largest organisation in terms of membership. Now, these people instructed an independent body to carry out a survey that took approximately 6 months, and it involved over 500 HR and industry leaders from different vertical markets, from different seniority levels, but everybody basically gave an input. So, broadly speaking, they came up with a conclusion that if you do certain things in recruitment, ultimately there will be certain impact and consequences if you get it wrong. And the CIPD teaches something called predictive validity in their curriculum, which basically says that you can do all these assessments. There is a list of different assessments that you can do, and if you can do every single one of them, you can get 0.7 coefficient of 1, which basically allows 70% accuracy and 30% margin for error. Now, assume that that doesn't quite happen, but essentially, in the first 3 months, it is well-known fact to us and to some of our clients through the research that we've carried out, that the biggest impact on retention happens in the first 12 months. After the 12 months it becomes easier, but the biggest dropouts in the first 6 months. So essentially, we base our assumptions and our calculations that I'm about to share with you, Mr. Client, on this report. So these numbers are objective, and hopefully the assumptions are something that you'll agree with. So this is here what we call the algorithm front face behind the recruitment process audit. All this here that you can see comes with a fully rebranded format, and it can be embedded in your website for you to use the same process to drive traffic to it. So I'm just going to do some numbers together here with you. So the first question is, I'll ask the client, how many people do you typically recruit every year? Or how many people did you recruit in the last 12 months? So the client will say, well, we recruit 10 people. And out of these 10 people, how many are still in employment after a minimum period of 12 months or a year? So the client will just say 7 for the sake of argument. Now these numbers are important to be extracted from the client. So the client needs to participate in that, because the more assumptions you make, the less likely it is for them to consider them as personal. But these are not so difficult questions, and the clients will be able to answer that, from our experience at least. The next one is the salary, let's say £50,000. And my next question is, how long did these 3 people that are no longer with you remain in business? Is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? So let's go with 6 months. And once again, these numbers are whatever the client tells you, this is what you need to put. But for this example, I'm just using that. My last question is, what do you pay for this sort of service, Mr. Client? And the client will say in percentage terms, say 18%. The numbers once again could be different. So I'll calculate, and this is where you can capture the data from the client if it's an online inquiry. And as part of our process, we teach how to use this information. But essentially, if you do a generic marketing with 1 email per week, you're likely to see about 30% opening rates overall, and you'll have at least 30% of the 30% inquiries that you can follow up, and also some direct inbound inquiries where people have completed and requested assistance with that. So if you can click calculate, firstly, what will be sent to the client? 2 things will happen. You will receive a report in a moment through your email system that will give you the narrative behind this one, and also explain about, summarize the numbers once again, and also explain as to how these numbers have been arrived at. Plus also, it'll give you the credentials of the people, or some of the people that have been involved in it. So, as you can see here, Mr. Client, you're currently operating on 70% retention. That means that 30% of your people leave you, and if this is a generic process for you, let me show you the numbers. So the first thing that they'll show the client is direct costs. And if you look at these numbers, essentially what we're saying to the client is that due to unrecoverable salary, wasted management and training time, recruitment agency fees to recruit these people once and having to recruit them again, lost productivity, because when people start employment they don't work at 100% capacity. So based on these assumptions, your direct costs, i.e. money coming out of your own pocket, Mr. Client, is short of £200,000. Then I'll ask the client how do they feel about it. Do they think that this number is the correct number? They might push back, and that's perfectly okay, because if you think of it, 2 things happen. The clients are firstly embarrassed, and they're trying to either defend or rationalize these numbers or just deny them. But that's okay. We agree with the clients. We say, yes, these are assumptions. They may not be quite accurate, but I'll show you conceptually what the difference is between working the way you work and the way we propose to work in a moment. So, first one, next question is, how do you feel about it? Good, bad, or indifferent? No client will say they feel great about it, so it is very likely to be I feel bad about it, and say, if you feel bad about that, let me share something that you've never thought of that also has impact on cost. So the indirect costs of recruiting the way you recruit are, I don't know, £200,000 or £250,000, give or take. So if you put the two together, the client's cost of direct and indirect costs on their business is about short of £500,000 or £150,000, give or take, per placement. Now, if you think about it this way, once again, we can go in very personal, depending on the level of relationship that you've got with this client, but I can be asking questions to say, well, did you achieve target last year, Mr. Sales Director? And they might be saying, yes, we did, or no, we didn't. If they say, yes, we did, my question would be, imagine how much more you could have done if you did not have this extra cost or wasted money, etc., on your bottom line. Or alternatively, if they didn't make budget, or they didn't hit target, my question is, how did it affect you personally? I suspect that you're getting paid a bonus, so we can have a personal conversation with the client. But bottom line is, we need to demonstrate to the client, and we need to show them unequivocally that the current recruitment process, the way they recruit, actually results in about £500,000 in potential losses or wasted money. Now, what I want to do, I'll say to the client, is I want to show you a comparison, and I will click on this here, and that will bring me a second table. Now, what I'll say to the client is there are two differences in the algorithms behind these two tables. The first one, the formula, is a like-for-like formula. So essentially, the algorithm or the calculation that have been done here are exactly the same there, with one exception. As you can see, the obvious thing is the fact that we're moving away from 70% retention to 96% retention. And the client might ask, why 96? Well, what I'll reply to the client is that over the past 6 years, we've kept statistical information of every placement that we've ever made, and our statistics are showing that we have consistent in excess of 96% retention over a period of 12 months, and in excess of 90% retention over a period of 24 months. In other words, our clients that have used us using our process have consistently delivered in excess of 96% retention. And that's in different verticals, in different seniority. Naturally, we're taking a group figure, and in some markets, these numbers may be higher or lower. But bottom line is that conceptually, what my communication to the client will be is, if I move you from 70%, Mr. Client, to as close as possible to 96%, do you think you're likely to save money? Well, the formulas don't lie. Even though they may be abstract, if you want to say that, they're showing that if you move your retention from here to there, or as close as possible to there, there will be saving. So, and the saving, as you can see, quantifies itself from 196,000 to 56,000 pounds. That's considerable saving in direct costs. The other thing that's different, as I'll say to the client, is the actual recruitment fees. As you can see, these are lower than these. And the point that I'm trying to make here to the client is that your current recruitment process will require that you employ people, pay agency fees once, and then having to pay them again to re-recruit these people in the end. If you actually do that, it'll cost you about £54,000. With us, it costs you only £37,000. And for two reasons. We actually charge more than the default 80%, 18% rate that you just put in. We charge a minimum of 25%, but we give you a longer term guarantee. So essentially, with our retention ratio and the longer term guarantee, you've got less chance to having to replace. And for that reason, our fees, even though higher in percentage terms, are lower overall, on a like-for-like basis. Never mind the fact that the additional saving will make the process obviously what we call a no-brainer. That's in terms of direct costs coming out of people's pockets. Then we talk about indirect costs, and this is the impact on performance within the team. As you can see, a strong, congruent, close working team has bigger output productivity, so the costs are slashed quite dramatically. In other words, My proposition to the client will be, if you decide to instruct us, ultimately we can reduce a considerable amount of money of your total and overall cost. And I'll be asking at this moment in time the client to say, do you think that's something that we need to explore further? And the answer is mostly yes. At this moment in time, the client will be saying, please tell me how you do it, which will naturally take us to the next place, which is the iIntro platform. Now, I won't go today, because I'm mindful of the time, into the platform and do a demonstration. If someone wants to see the platform again, they're more than welcome. Just drop me an email at the end of this conversation and I'll be more than happy to oblige and arrange a mutually convenient time for us to follow. But essentially, the conversation goes from you being a recruiter, then now being a consultant that's on the same side as the client, helping them reduce cost, which is not just clearly demonstrably their evidence to the client. Secondly, we obviously reduce commercial downtime and improve retention by actually adding value-add services, which we do on behalf of the client, as opposed to expecting the clients to do. And we know that sometimes the knowledge and capability of the recruiting accurately is varied from client to client. Okay, in summary, what does your new system offer? Before, we've offered you initial training, ongoing support, and a software. Some of our clients, as I said to you, exceeded expectations by innovating themselves, and we thought, that's not enough, we need to offer you more. So as part of our solution now, we offer you the typical process that we've always done, but we've added the recruitment process. Audit is a tool that's fully branded and available to you to use, and will obviously teach you how to market it, how to actually attract candidates, etc. And also we've offered the Retain Recruiter Roadmap. The Retain Recruiter Roadmap is a combination of various training days, on and offline, starting up with commercial objectives for the business, the team and the individual. So what's you need for me is throughout the process, and we actually work alongside with you based on your knowledge and capabilities, but very specifically with your commercial objectives to deliver or make this platform to work for you in the best possible way. I'll just leave it for a moment for you to reflect on this, but essentially the Retain Recruitment Roadmap, in support of what we currently do, makes the significant difference. And we already know it because some of our clients, our newest clients that have taken on this platform, are delivering tremendous results. So what does it all do? Let's share with you the costs and how we've priced the product. Most of this stuff that you see in orange here is, just to summarize it, customized solution, setup, training video suite, content library with documentation, support and sales collateral, videos, behavioral assessment tools and various other things, as well as the initial training. And this is all included in every single package. Now we've got 3 different options available. One is called Do It Yourself, the other one is called Do It With You, and the third one is say Do It For You. I will just concentrate on this middle element because this is the most popular one that ultimately ends up people taking on. It represents as much as 90-95% of our total clients that have come on board have actually taken this option. So this option includes everything plus the additional training modules, the recruitment training, Retain Recruiter Roadmap, the recruitment process audit, behavioral assessment training, bespoke candidate briefing packs and client proposal documents that we prepare on your behalf with your brand collateral, McQuaid word surveys to the levels as you can see them here, and finally video assessments are included, once again, the levels that you see here. The cost of this one is at £14,991. or if you wish to pay it monthly, there is a £1,491 per calendar month. Contract is, as you know, it's 12 months contract. There is also a one-off setup fee. But for you, because you've expressed the courtesy to come back to us again, we will offer you, before 31st of October, everybody that takes a decision before 31st of October and commits to a contract, will give everybody 25% off. In addition to that, we'll offer 2 months for free. So in other words, if you take a commitment before the end of this month, you don't have to pay for anything until 2019, and we'll give you the option to take advantage of the discount. Now, if you take a decision quicker, because this is a one-off opportunity, we will, and if you take a decision before the 23rd, by 24th of October, i.e. over the next week, we will give you 50% off of the total price. As you can see, the numbers here are changing, and on top of that, we'll give you not 2, but we'll give you 3 months for free. Now, this is the best offer that we've ever put forward, and I believe that this will be the last time where something like that is being offered. But to support you guys, because you've expressed interest, you are always on the verge to take a decision, we've decided now to give you an overwhelming reason to do so. And I hope you will consider this one of value. In other words, that's the offer. This is the best offer. If you take a decision quicker, you're more than welcome to take advantage of this one. If not, after the 24th, it will be at 25% and 2 months free. The only thing that you need to do is to get in touch with me, and you should already have my details, but just in case you don't, there they are again. You can give me a call on my mobile, or you can drop me an email, which I'll be delighted to follow up with straight away. So, I hope you found this one of interest. I look forward to hearing from you, and if for some reason you think this is something for you and you want to take a decision now, please feel free. But if for some reason you don't feel that's something for you and you don't want to be concerned and bothered by us, please drop me an email and say no thanks or yes please, and let's move forward. Thanks again. I hope you found it of interest. I look forward to hearing from you as soon as practically possible. Thank you again.